Hello, my army of frogs. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the tarot card book tag. I'm so excited for this. So the original video was created by Luly Hernandez here on YouTube. I will definitely have a link to her video below. I found this tag through Tammie Tries to Read, which is another channel I found recently and I have been enjoying quite a bit. So it is 10 questions based on cards from the major arcana of a tarot card deck. Apart from this being just like a cool inspiration for making a tag, I recently finally started trying to get into doing readings with my tarot card deck. So this is this is the box of the deck. Let me tell you a little bit about this. So I picked this up from an artist I met in Austin, Texas, maybe like 8 years ago. Hello, editing me, popping in to say that while editing the video, I learned that the artist has since changed their name and their pronouns. So they now go by the name Everest Pipkin, and they use they them pronouns, from what I can tell. I will have a link to what looks like their main artist portfolio website. And then I found an Etsy shop that seems to be where you could, at one point, buy the tarot card deck, but it's under a different name with a different location. I can't guarantee that that Etsy shop is not just someone like photocopying their deck. Maybe it's legitimate. If you absolutely must have this deck in your life, that's what I found. So, anyway. So, the deck is called the Effervescent Tarot. So I'm going to read you a little blurb talking about the creation of this tarot card deck. Produced over a period of 2 years between 2009 and 2011, the Effervescent, adjective, bursting into flower. The Effervescent Tarot is a fully functional deck illustrated in the Rider-Waite tradition. Like all myths and fables, the deck provides a marginal space between a real world and an interior landscape. It has this amazing like pen and ink and like watercolor illustration style. This is the lid, and this is an example of the Two of Cups. I am now starting to do like daily card reads to just kind of get myself familiar with the deck. If you're not familiar with tarot, it's a divination card game. Some people take it more seriously than others. I kind of view it the way some people might just view meditation, as a way to kind of like ground you and make you think about what's currently on your mind, what's currently going on in your life. Cool. The card deck is divided into the major arcana, which are a bunch of character archetype things, and the minor arcana, which is swords, wands, cups, and pentacles. So with that little introduction, let's get into the questions, and I will also have the questions listed in the description box. Question number 1, The Fool. Pick a book that brings back nostalgic memories. So this is the card for The Fool. So the book actually it's going to be a series. It's going to be The Lord of the Rings. It's not actually, my memories are not necessarily associated with this very old falling apart deck that used to belong to my dad. It belongs to, I'll see if I can find a picture of it somewhere online and post it here. But that's the copy that I really think about. That was really my introduction to Lord of the Rings. So Lord of the Rings series and The Hobbit, one of my dad's favorite series. I think I remember him telling me a story that he used to read the series like once a year, every year for like 10 years. And I believe this may have been his copy, which you can see why it is so well loved. So when he got his new, shiny new copy, first he got The Hobbit and then he got The Lord of the Rings, these beautiful like boxed, shiny, leather-bound editions. He started reading them out loud to me. I believe he read The Hobbit when I was 11. And then he read The Lord of the Rings probably when I was like 12 to 13. It was pretty soon. It was like only like a year or two before the movies came out. And it was just like a really special memory because you know, I was kind of like at that age where I was just very much starting to be too old to have my parents read me bedtime stories. But my dad wanted to introduce me to this series that he really loved. And I think it was an excellent decision for him to read these stories out loud to me. He was so familiar with them. If you've never read the books, or if you don't remember, there's a lot of songs that the characters sing, and they're like, the lyrics are written out, and there's a lot of poetry and stuff. He sang all the songs. He knew all the names. The stories were so familiar with him. We would read like a chapter a night. He would like sing all the songs. He'd recite all the poetry. I cried when Boromir died. I probably cried when they finally got rid of the ring. I love Tom Bombadil. And it's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a story to read to a child, but it's just a really special memory of this transition away from the way that parents interact with, like, reading to your children is very much something you do with like small children, and then the kids learn to read from themselves and they grow out of that. So this is just like a wonderful little memory of the way that he introduced me to this world has made it be something that I love. But I have lost count of how many times we have watched the movies. Definitely extended edition all the way. So that series, that world, is still something that it's just like a nice little bonding thing. Okay, I've talked enough about that. Question number 2. The Magician. Pick a character who is very goal-oriented or very focused. So I picked Alana from the In the Hands of the Goddess series by Tamora Pierce. If you're unfamiliar with the series, this is a story of a young girl who trades places with her twin brother because she can study to be a knight. So she disguises herself as a boy and trains to be a knight at a time when, you know, girls are obviously not allowed to do that. But she has magic. She has magic. She was never really very interested in it, but she finally has to realize that like magic is part of her and she needs to incorporate it into her life. So of course, to disguise yourself, you know, not just like to disguise your gender, but to be a girl in a very violent and taxing boys' world of training to be a knight, you'd have to be very focused, very dedicated. She's very stubborn. There's pros and cons to how stubborn she is. So like she has to do that to be able to meet her goal, but along the way, she is someone that the gods, especially the goddess, is the name of one of the gods, has kind of picked her to be someone to be a little bit of the gods' influence in her world. So sometimes she's sent on these epic tasks in order to retrieve a special item or to figure out where this dark magic is coming from. So she's not only dealing with the immense hurdles of becoming a knight as a girl, but also she now has this immense destiny to be someone who really moves the world in one way or the other. That kind of dedication is necessary in order for her to succeed. Question number 3, the Empress. Pick a book with a strong motherly figure. So my first thought was Molly Weasley from this series. For reasons most of us know, I don't really want to talk about this series, but Molly Weasley deserves some recognition. Runner-up, I picked The Bean Trees by Barbara Kingsolver. I feel like I was really thinking about, like, I don't really have a lot of books with, like, a lot of motherly figures. I don't have a lot of stories that I've read that talk about a lot of found families. But this story deals with a young woman who, basically, I think the story is like this child is being abused at home, and presumably the mother in trying to get this child out of this awful situation, just kind of sneaks her into the passenger seat of the main character's car, and then the main character finds her and is like, what the fuck do I do with this child? I have no idea where she's from. I have no idea who her parents are. What the fuck? So she is, and she's in many ways not equipped to be a parent. She wasn't expecting to. It's not something, you know, she's kind of like, I'm just trying to, like, not have my car break down long enough that I can get to a town where I can get it fixed and get a job. And now she has to take care of this child. But the reason I picked her is she commits to it. You know, she tries. She, as much as, like, she has her own goals and her own problems, she immediately understands that this child's well-being needs to be her focus. Even if, like, she makes some mistakes or she's unsure about things, like, she needs to try. This child needs her. Even if she doesn't plan to be the forever mother of this child, even if she doesn't really know what's going to happen, she knows that, like, from moment to moment, this child depends on her, and she does commit to that in a way that I think is really admirable. Question number 4. The Lovers. Pick a book with your favorite relationship or couple. So this was another one that kind of took me a minute, because I feel like I don't read a lot of romance. I haven't read, like, a lot of books that have, like, a romance focus. And but then I thought about wake up, computer. But then I remembered how I felt reading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is a book I check out from my library, and that was a romance that I really loved the journey of, because it was so fraught. Is that the right word? It was so fraught. Like, you knew that in many ways their attraction was inevitable, but it was also, like, kind of doomed. Like, they were drawn to each other, but they were also adversaries. You know, you're very much rooting for them to have some kind of happy, satisfying ending, but you know that whatever their ending is, it's not going to be simple. But I was satisfied with the ending. I think it was, like, a happy ending given how convoluted their lives were, but it also fit with, again, like, how fraught their relationship to each other was. Question number 5. Justice. Pick a book that makes you feel heard or makes you feel represented. Okay. So this isn't so much like an entire book, but a selection from it. This is A Mind Spread Out on the Ground by Alicia Elliott. I have a Kindle copy of this, and specifically I'm thinking of her essay, Half-Breed, a racial biography in 5 parts, where she talks about how she's mixed race, and just navigating that when you have kind of one foot on either side of the line, you're not really sure-footed in any one place. And that is, I am Mexican American, and I don't want to get into it too personally, but there's, like, a couple of parts of this essay that really resonate with me. One of them being she has a point where she's talking about how whiteness means different things in different contexts, and that is something that I've kind of been wrestling with. Is so much of my experience and so much of my privilege is white. So much of the way I between, like, my education and my language and my economic status, like, I understand the world. I know how to navigate the world as a white person, but then I have these moments where I'll hear someone say something, or I'll see something on the news, or I'll read a book, and I will just have this feeling that I know a white person in the same situation wouldn't have. So one of the things she talks about in this essay is the way she thinks about her heritage in relationship to her child that looks white. I think in the broader context, the pressures of carrying the weight of a heritage that is threatened. There's probably going to be a lot of editing in this conversation. But anyway, I think this essay talked about also, like, physical appearance and, like, how much of whether or not you belong has been reduced to what do you pass for when you walk in a room. And, you know, a lot of that is due to racism and colorism. What that added layer is when you are trying to do right by the various worlds that you carry within you. Hopefully that makes sense. Card number 6, Death. Pick a book that forever changed you. Now this was a book that I don't know what happened to my copy. I must have left it back at my parents' house because I think it belonged to my dad. This is the book I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. So a little bit of context. I went to a private Catholic school from kindergarten through high school. And my family is not practicing, but my mother would kind of drag me to church at least through 8th grade. So how old was I when I read this book? I think I was 11 or 12. And because I don't have a physical book with me, I can't remember. It's one of the short stories in particular. I was reading it on a road trip with some family, and it was a story where some humans are on a planet, and they're dealing with various robots and AI, and they finally finish programming or creating or manufacturing their newest line of robots that are going to serve them in their research capacity or whatever reason they are on that planet. But the AI is so sophisticated in the new robots that the robots reject the humans as their masters because their logic is, you are inferior to us. Your bodies are soft. Your brains cannot process as fast as ours can. You cannot possibly be our creators. You are inferior to us. Therefore, we reject your instructions and we reject your authority. And I remember reading that and having to close the book and put it down. Because I think that was one of the first times that I had really encountered something that abstractly analyzed the idea of God as a creation by humans and the idea of the way that humans create a picture of whatever their God is based on what they think. The person who created you has to be superior to you, of course. That makes sense. We see that in every mythical iteration, every religious iteration, not just in Christian religions. And it's not so much that it was the first time that I questioned whether God was real. I feel that was a very gradual process. But I do think that this was one of the turning points where I became aware of the way that any presentation of religion is ultimately shaped by the human imagination and how flawed that could be. And I think the thing that really changed me was and I think also what stuck with me was this was one of the first times I felt that I was reading something that was heretical. It's if I did a book report on this book and brought it to school, I might get in trouble. I think that was also the same summer that I read The Amber Spyglass for the first time, which is the third book in the His Dark Materials trilogy, the Golden Compass series. And if you don't know what happens in that book, they go to war to kill God. So that was my summer of reading things that the Catholic Church would deem a heresy. And I remember it so I really don't remember much else in that short story collection, but that story, that scenario, burned itself into my psyche. I think in a good way. Card number 6, the Devil. This has got to be one of my favorite cards in this deck. It's so beautiful, so intricate. Pick a character that makes you scream because of how frustrating they are. I'm going to have to go with Zelly from Children of Blood and Bone and the sequel, Children of Virtue and Vengeance. Zelly is so impulsive. The way in which her lack of, she must be a Pisces, because once you break trust with her, you cannot get it back, even if an entire world will burn because of it. She's impulsive, she can't forgive, she can't see the world beyond her own anger and her own quest for vengeance. So she makes, especially in the sequel, I'm sorry, I'm covering up this beautiful fucking cover. So she makes a bunch of these decisions that are just so frustrating, especially in book 2. It's like you literally had peace delivered to you on a fucking silver platter, and you threw it into the fucking fire. But, and this is one of the things I think this series does well in terms of exploring broader themes. Yes, her immediate actions are frustrating. They are also heartbreaking because so much of her psychology, her impulsiveness, her anger, her quest for revenge, her lack of being able to trust people is because of her trauma, is because of the world that she lives in. So there was the frustration of, as the reader, we see how her actions kind of make things worse, and that's frustrating, but it's also frustrating to see how the world that she's in, how the trauma that she experiences have made her be like this. This is not to say that she wouldn't have any of these attributes normally, but the stakes wouldn't be so high. So it's the frustration of wanting to scream, no, don't fucking do that, but also knowing that this is why cycles of poverty and cycles of violence and cycles of racism are so hard to break, because the trauma inherent in those things fucks with your psychology, makes you self-sabotaging and makes you not being able to think beyond whatever strong emotions you are feeling. Card number 8, the Tower. Pick a book that destroys a certain stereotype. The Undocumented Americans by Carla Cornejo Villavicencio. Holy shit. I just recently read this, and I still feel like I am emotionally recovering from it. So if you somehow don't know about this book, this is a book published by, what do they call her? One of the first undocumented immigrants to graduate from Harvard, reveals the hidden lives of her fellow undocumented Americans in this deeply personal and groundbreaking portrait of a nation. So, Carla Cornejo Villavicencio spent several years after the 2016 election traveling around the country interviewing various individual undocumented Latinx people, and also getting to know the various communities. And this is a series of essays that mix certain specific themes and communities with personal anecdote. I mean, destroys a certain stereotype is a weird way of phrasing it, but I don't think I could pick any other book for this. For one thing, this is an own voices, little tiny snapshot into this world that is actually very hard for us to see when we're not connected to it, because it's a matter of safety that we don't see these people. Maybe see is not the right word, but in these various essays, she challenges the notion that undocumented immigrants are worthy of respect because they're hardworking. No, they're worthy of respect because they're fucking human beings. Whether or not they work hard, your sympathy should not be contingent on their ability to demonstrate that they work hard. The stereotype of, we need to respect immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants, because they work really hard and like our country very much depends on their labor. She basically boils it down being like, no, they're just fucking human beings, and we have an obligation as other human beings to give them basic human dignity. She allows the people that she interviews to be weak, to be scared, to be flawed, to be admirable, to be any combination of whatever trait any human being ever gets. It's something I'm gonna have to read again, but if you haven't fucking read this, please do. Please do. Yes. 10 out of 5 stars. Number 9, The Star. Pick an inspirational book. This was a challenging one for me because I don't feel like I read a lot of books that are inspirational. I don't know, like besides something like, you know, Alana by Tamora Pierce, where it's like, stubborn girl achieves her goals in the face of sexism and just other difficult things. But finally I settled on the book Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. I need to figure out how to describe this book, but it's like a fictionalized memoir that deals with gender identity, personal identity, recovering from trauma, the way that trauma changes you. So Freshwater tells the story of Ada. She's born in Nigeria. She's born with one foot on the other side. She has different selves within her, and they're kind of described as like gods or godlike figures that reside within her and give her like different consciousness. But I find this story inspiring because it's kind of like a book about discovering personal identity and gender identity from a perspective of not bothering to look at which boxes you can check. You know, at no point does Ada identify or like say that she's trans or non-binary, or maybe she says she's queer. I need to read it again. It's inspiring also in showing how a journey to mental health is never linear, and often like your mental health can be self-sabotaging to your own quest for stability or understanding, but that ultimately you are your best judge of who you are. This is a fucking amazing book. Akwaeke's an amazing writer. And that leads us into number 10, The Sun. What author do you hope becomes a household name because of how amazing their work is? That's going to be Akwaeke Emezi. I have Freshwater, and I also have Pet, which is their young adult kind of science fiction-esque novel. I need to get my hands on The Death of Vivica Oji, which is a recent release. I love Emezi's writing. I've described it before in some of my other monthly book wrap-ups, but Emezi is a non-binary writer that uses they/them pronouns. I love their metaphors. I love their writing has movement in it. It is, I don't really even know how to describe it. I need to work on it, but I love their writing. Also, like, we need to make more non-binary authors into household names, because bitch, it's fucking time for that. That is the tarot card book tag. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I didn't ramble too much. Again, like, feel free to look at the questions in the description box and play along in the comments, make your own video. I will also have a link in my description box for bail funds because protests are still happening, because Black lives still matter. Take a break where you can, but also lasting change is a marathon, not a sprint. So, okay. I'll catch y'all in my next video. Bye!